Hey guys, welcome to Let's Discuss Cafe, the podcast where we dive into the world of law, innovation, and business strategy.
Ethan, welcome to the Let's Discuss podcast. So, for our viewers who don't know anything about you, would you care to give them a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Cornell University when I was 16 years old. I met my wife the first day of class. I graduated in 3 years when I was 19, and I went to Columbia Law School, primarily because my wife wanted to be an investment banker in New York City because she heard they made a lot of money. So at Columbia, I was probably either the youngest person or one of the youngest. And I graduated into a great economy, and I had a ton of job offers as a 22-year-old first-year associate. I worked at a prestigious New York-based law firm doing mergers and acquisitions. And then my wife got into Harvard Business School, so we went to Boston for 2 years while she got her MBA. After that, we went back to New York, and then I got a job in Hong Kong where I was in-house counsel for Fidelity Mutual Fund. And then I worked at a hedge fund for a year as an in-house counsel as well. At that point, we had a kid in Hong Kong. We didn't want to live overseas or in Boston or New York. So I decided to move to Houston, Texas, which has a much lower cost of living and no state income tax. So I got a job here back in a big law firm doing oil and gas transactions. And my wife stayed at home to take care of our kids. We ended up having 5 children over time, 4 daughters and a son. And then, she would run around town doing this fun thing or that fun thing with the kids. And then I would be at the office late nights and weekends doing big law type of work. And I just kept trying to figure out how I could achieve not having to work there anymore.
Right.
So I Googled, what do I do to not have to work big law hours? I've already saved lots of money, so it's not like I'm financially required to be here. And so what I discovered was there were two routes that looked interesting. One was buying a franchise, and the other was investing in real estate. I did deep dive due diligence into both, did not really like franchising much at all. And I did like real estate. So I got into real estate by lending people money to fix and flip houses at a high interest rate. And then over the past 6, 7 years, I've been working independently by myself. I have my own law firm. It's myself and a paralegal. I sell life insurance as part of a registered investment advisor, and I run my family office where we do our investing. We've really just started we transitioned about 3 years ago to doing credit enhancement and special situations loans. So what we look for are situations where someone needs additional liquidity, net worth, balance sheet on their team so that they can qualify on a loan. So the way it generally works in commercial real estate, let's say, Avi, you and I are buying a $20 million apartment building. We'll try to borrow about 15 million from a lender, and we'll raise 5 million from our friends and family. In order for you and I to qualify for that loan, you and I would have to have net worth that exceeds the loan amount. So you and I would have to have $15 million of net worth to even qualify for this loan. And then let's assume we did, the lender is generally also going to require that you have at least 10% of that liquid, brokerage account, life insurance policies, preferably cash in a bank or a CD. So in that case, you and I would have to have $1.5 million liquid, 10% of 15 million. So if you and I don't have that net worth, or even if we do, if we don't have that liquidity, we will have to bring on someone else onto our team. And then we would all sign on the loan. So that is the role that I get brought into. When somebody does not have enough net worth and liquidity to fill out their team, I'll get brought on, and then I'll be a credit enhancement. I sign on the loan in order to get the deal approved. And then I also look for very special situations where somebody is in a very acute and desperate need for a loan. Let's say they need to close a deal and one of their investors backs out last minute. It's impossible to replace the investor. So I'll come in, replace the investor, and then they win. So I do that quite a bit. So, an example would be one of the deals I did was somebody had an investor back out on them last minute. They needed $6 million. They needed it the same day, or else they're going to lose their earnest money deposit that they put in, which was $850,000. And then they would have to return, their investors why they couldn't close. They didn't want to do that. So they borrowed $6 million from me, and they got their deal done, and then they found other investors to then buy out my position in the next 3 months.
Right. Look, that completely makes sense, and thanks, for explaining all the stuff. But for somebody like me and some of our viewers who don't understand what credit enhancement is, what are the terms like gator loans, what does these terms actually mean?
A credit enhancement just means adding to a credit package, so strengthening the
Right.
credit profile of a team. So it's basically what I explained before. If you and I are buying a property and we need to qualify for a $15 million loan, the requirement is going to be that you and I have net worth that exceeds $15 million. And if
Right.
you and I do not, we have to bring on somebody else onto our team. And even if we do, we have to have significant liquidity to close the deal. They don't use our liquidity. We just need to show it to get approved for the loan. So if you and I do not, we're going to have to bring on somebody that does.
Right. And what about the terms like gator loans? What does that mean?
Gator loans is something somebody just made up. It
Okay.
just means like a weird loan, really, is what it is.
Okay. No worries there. So, what really excited me about your profile is that, you were trained in law, then you were working as a lawyer for some times. Now, the job that you are doing, a lot of that has to deal with law for sure, but a lot of it has to deal with financials and also the human aspects, right? Because when you're lending some person a money, it's just not about the financial. You have to look at the person behind that, right? So how do you calculate that? How do you factor all these things before becoming a partner?
I mean, we do very detailed financial and
Right.
personal analysis and personality fit. I mean, it's what you would expect from making any investment. You do as much due diligence as you can.
So how did you learn about all these things?
By doing it, by reading, by
Right.
watching videos of people, and then just really doing a lot of transactions.
Wow. Like, so any horror stories or any interesting story that, especially in the early stages, because I see a lot of lawyers who have been like doing certain things, they're really afraid to, jump into a new field. So how was the early days? Any learnings from that phase?
Yeah, it's kind of it's like impossible to really distill it down. But I would say one of the things I've learned is I'm pretty selective on personality.
Right.
There's certain people that could make us money and might be fine, but they're just not a good personality match for me. So I'm not really interested in those people anymore. I know enough people and I have enough business where that's one of the things that I exclude people on, which a lot of people aren't selective on personality. They just want to know how much money can you make me right now, right? So for me, even if somebody can make me a lot of money right now, if they're just not a good personality match, I'm old enough and rich enough at this point in my life where I'm just not that interested in doing that.
Right. So see, this is something, which comes really challenging to me, right? So as a person, like, so how do you judge someone on a personality, right? So you're meeting at them for like 15, 20 minutes, half an hour max. So what are the things that you look for, personality wise?
Yeah, it's not just 15 to 30 minutes. I mean, you'll have a bunch of
Okay.
emails, text messages, calls. Um, it's hard for me to I met thousands of people
Right.
in in real estate, so it's really impossible for me to distill down all of the thousands of interactions and repeated interactions I've had with people. But I'll give you an example of a personality type that I try to avoid. Personalities that only like to text me and not email me or call me
Right.
That's a personality type that I already know is an unlikely good fit for me. I'll text, fine, but I'm a 40-year-old man. Uh,
Right.
like there's certain things we have to call each other about. Like it's not a text thing,
Right.
right? I'll call you, I say call me back. Don't send me a long text. That doesn't work. It's a call, not a text.
Right.
Or like emails, right? Please see attached the following five things. Do not text me attachments with five things. I'm just going to forward it to my email. That's a stupid way of doing business. So
Right.
people that are very bad at calling or emailing, I already know it's unlikely that we're going to be the best personality fit. That's just one example.
No, I completely agree. That's the situation with me as well. Like, but I struggle that with especially with a lot of younger employees that I have. Like, they really hate calling, and so, like especially in remote working, right? Something just doesn't get resolved over text. But yeah, that's something even I hate personally, for sure. I still remember, Paul Grams, one of the co-founders of YC, Y Combinator. He said something on this sort that, that you have to kind of more rely upon your basic instincts when judging people. And as a startup entrepreneur, if you don't see them, if you don't see with the person that, you are going to grab a beer with them, that's maybe is a good sign that there is no, personality fit there. So maybe I think you kind of agree with that philosophy.
Yeah, I don't drink though, so it's like I don't want to grab a beer with anybody.
Okay, no
So
problem.
that
Right.
that particular example doesn't resonate with me, but I know exactly what you're trying to say.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes complete sense. So yeah. So the next thing I wanted to kind of discuss is that you also mentioned that you are an escrow officer with one of the national insurance trusts. So what does that job look like? What does an escrow officer do basically?
Yeah, if you're familiar with closings on real estate, so they get the title records, they coordinate with the underwriters, they order payoff statements, they do a lot of closing mechanics. So it's a quasi legal, uh, but it's also a highly technical and highly customer specific job.
Right. So, completely makes sense. So, over the job that you are doing, because, obviously I run a startup on generative AI for the legal purposes. So, what are the things that, and there's so much, talk about chat GPT replacing lawyers. So, what are the things in your job that you're looking at and you feel that, generative AI can really help you with, or do you have any experiences in this regard?
Um, so I think AI is definitely going to be very important for the future.
Right.
I just don't think it's quite there yet. So I use ChatGPT. I asked it a very basic question. I was like, what is the usury limit? So the maximum interest rate enforceable by law in, I don't know, Tennessee. And I
Right.
remember I got an answer that said, on the one hand, the answer is blah, 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 blah. And then on the other hand, it's XYZ. And then on the third hand, it's this. I'm like, there's three, like, we only have two hands. I literally need, is it 17% or is it 19%? Like it's an answer.
Right.
Didn't answer my question. And then I Googled it and I
Right.
saw the answer. And I was like, well, AI is not that good because I Googled it. I found the answer right away. And then when I asked ChatGPT, it gave me a confusing answer because it didn't know the answer. So it just went on and on like my, 9-year-old would talk about nonsense. It was a waste of time. So I
Right.
don't see AI as being good enough right now. It's still being developed. Somebody recently wanted me to invest in their AI company, and they made me do like a live chat with their AI bot while I was talking to them. Super unimpressive. Because
Right.
I said, okay, well, he said, just test it. Say
Right.
whatever you. So I just said a bunch of stupid nonsense,
Right.
and then it kept responding to me like I was serious, where I clearly wasn't. And then at the end, I said, I'm a lawyer. Remove me from your list. And if you text me one more time, I'm going to sue you.
Right.
You know what it did, Abby?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what the AI did after I made that threat?
I'm not sure. Please tell me.
It texted me again. And then
Yeah,
I said, hey, I'm serious. If you
right,
text me one more time, I
right,
am going to sue you under the TCPA. Stop bothering me. Guess
right.
what it did, Avi?
That's it. Okay.
Texted me again. And I'm like, okay, this AI is not good at all.
Right.
Not good at all.
Right. No, completely agree with you. I think I'm on the same boat on your thoughts with AI. But one of the things that I like to ask about lawyers these days. So over the like all the legal tasks that you did, like you just mentioned using legal AI for legal research. Obviously, that's like the obvious use case we think about. In addition to that, like what part of the job is more labor intensive? What is the most boring part of your job these days?
Well, I mean, legal work can be tedious, reviewing long, super long, complicated documents, looking for specific answers. That can be tedious. A lot of the escrow title work, it's an administrative quasi-legal job that can be tedious, although I don't really do that work. I bring in the closing business, and then other people on my team are doing the day-to-day work.
Right. No, absolutely makes sense. Thanks for that. So yeah, with this, I think we come to the end of this interview. The last question I always try like to ask with all our panelists is that you imagine that you are just graduating out of law college. What advice you would give to that version of yourself?
Um, well, I don't know. That's really hard.
It
It's so
is.
specific. It's so specific to the individual. Like, I mean, for myself, I
Right,
would have told that version of myself, hey, save a bunch of money from the job, but then
right,
just exit the job. It's very hard to get promoted to partner in big law. And
right,
then even if you do become a partner, it's an incredibly intensive and strenuous lifestyle. So I remember I sat next to a partner who was the department head of my department, and I was already working really, really hard, like, 60 hours a week on average, sometimes 80, sometimes 100. And, sometimes you have very stressful days where you go to sleep and then you wake up in the middle of the night, you're like, shit, I didn't send that email with the attachments. Like, let me go do that right now, right? And then you can't fall back to sleep. And then, I mean, the partner I worked with, I mean, he was very impressive in very specific ways, one of which was how hardworking he was. He worked even harder than me. And I
right,
was like, man, when I'm 50 years old, is that what I want to be doing? Like working even harder than what I'm currently doing? That seems rough. And I've always been very good at saving money from my background and my childhood and my cultural practices. So
right,
it wasn't like a job that I had to have. I would have much rather taken a less paying, less busy job. And actually, I worked at a firm, a very large law firm, and they had a very good policy, which I think only large firms generally do, which was if you had a kid, you could reduce your number of hours, and then you could also reduce your pay.
right,
So I immediately took that plan. I think everybody was very confused because very few males take that plan. It's
right,
mostly females that gave birth that take that plan. So I raised my hand. I was like, I'm a dude, but I want to take this plan. And I
right,
remember they had two different versions. One was like a 20% reduction in work and a 20% reduction in pay. And I think one was like a 60% reduction in work, or sorry, a 40% reduction in work and a 40% reduction in pay. And I remember as I was talking to my supervisor, I think they were actually, encouraging me to take the 20% reduction,
right,
not the 40. And I was like, I'm definitely going with the 40, like that for sure. Like you ain't convincing me to take the 20. But I was thinking in my head, I want to go the opposite way. Like, is there like a 60% reduction or like a 80% reduction that I could take? I really
right,
don't need the money.
right.
That wasn't available.
Uh,
Um, So I was totally fine with that. And that firm wasn't perfect by any means, but it was a very large firm, and that was a really good policy. And I think a lot of big firms can offer really cool stuff like that.
Absolutely. But does it actually result in 40% reduction of the work? Because some of
Well,
our
it definitely results. I can definitely tell you it resulted in a 40% reduction in pay. That
right.
part they got completely correct. They definitely immediately cut my paycheck by 40%. They were very happy to do that. It evened out to approximately that. Approximately. It's not perfect because I worked in transactional, a lot of it was mergers and acquisitions. You can't really tell people, hey, I've hit my, 60% today. I'm tired. Like, I'll talk to you tomorrow. That's not really a thing.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. Completely understand, but amazing. What you shared was really amazing, and I think it was a little counterintuitive as well. But thanks a lot. I think our viewers need to hear this side of the story a lot more than we get to hear, because especially in the US, I just see like it's all about the hustle culture, right? Which is may or may not be the right approach, right? So thanks a lot for this, all your thoughts, Ethan, and thanks a lot for coming for the interview. Have a
No,
great day.
thank you for interviewing me. This was great.
Okay, take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.